Hello Frizzle Forum! Today we are going to be talking all things spoilers. Do I like them? How do I feel about them? Are they even bad? This is a riff on the Booktube Spoiler Tag started by the channel Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, but I'm going to be doing the questions a little out of order in the order I want to talk about them instead. And the big question that I want to explore throughout this entire extravaganza is, are spoilers bad? When are they bad? Because for some people the answer is yes, always, and for some people the answer is no, never. So, where do I fall on that? There have been various studies on the topic of spoilers, and I'll link some good videos down below talking about those. Basic premise of these studies is like this. You give a bunch of people a short story to read. For some of the people, you spoil the ending for them first. For some people, you don't. And then afterwards, you ask everyone to rate their experience reading the story. And the first big famous study that did this found that people who were spoiled tended to rate the stories higher. They enjoyed the stories more knowing the plot going in. So, case solved. Spoilers makes everything better. Everyone should be spoiled. But no. Because in various repeat studies, they didn't always find the same results. It turns out, of course, it just depends on how you're spoiling the story, what kind of story you're spoiling, and how you ask the people to rate the books. Is it just rate your enjoyment of the book, or are you asking them on a lot of different categories? If you ask them to rate it one way, it's better being spoiled. If you ask them to rate the story a different way, it's better not being spoiled. So the conclusion is it good to be spoiled? It depends. Which, I could have told you that. And that brings us to our first question. Does the genre you're reading impact what you consider to be a spoiler? And yeah, absolutely. Because if you're reading a mystery novel, the whodunit is going to be a spoiler. However, if you're reading a romance novel saying the main couple gets together in the end is not a spoiler. In both cases, you're spoiling the big ending that the book is working towards, but obviously we can all see that there's a difference here. And that's just all because of the genre conventions. And of course, there are books in both of these genres that subvert their expectations, and for that romance, it would be a spoiler to say that they end up together, and for that mystery, it maybe wouldn't be a spoiler to say whodunit. But if it's a book following genre conventions, then that's just something that we expect. That's the thing we're working towards. I would say also, for all genres, punchlines to jokes are spoilers that I want to avoid. Because for most jokes, a big component of it is that the punchline is kind of surprising. So if you already know the punchline to the joke is just going to be inherently less funny. And why would you ruin a joke for someone? Please no. And that is why I don't like watching movie trailers, because they often put the best joke of the movie in the trailer, and then spoiled for the punchline, and you didn't even get the full setup. Why? So next, if spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors and genres you can't reread? Because even the example I just gave of mystery whodunits, it's often fun to reread those once you know it, because then you can see all the little foreshadowing and clues that you missed the first time. But I would say if a book is reliant almost wholly on the twists and the turns and the plot dramatics, those are the kind of books that I can't reread. If it's more reliant on character dramatics, then that is fun to experience a second time once you already know where all the characters are going to end up, seeing them take that journey a second time. I love rereading books. But even I could not enjoy rereading the Hunger Games series. Yes, there is character development in the Hunger Games series. I'm not saying it's non-existent, but it isn't very strong, and those books are boring on a reread. Most of the dramatic tension in those books comes from the plot, not from the characters. And once you already know the entire plot, that is just gone. But of course, if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. Everyone has their own opinions. That's just fine. So let's get into a little bit more of my personal opinions here. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you go in blind? So like I said, I already kind of avoid movie trailers. Not 100%. I'm not super strict about it. I try not to be too crazy about some things. I'm crazy about books, but Once I have decided that I want to read a book, I try to go in completely blind. I do not read the plot synopsis, I do not read the back of the book, I do not listen to what other people say about the book. I do not even touch the Goodreads review section. But if I haven't yet decided if I want to read a book or not, I kind of don't care at all about spoilers. I will watch an entire spoiler-filled review of it. And if that spoiler-filled review made me want to read the book, then sure, I'll go read the book. But in general, I think I enjoy books more when I don't know anything about them. So once I've decided that I'm going to enjoy this book 100%, I avoid all the spoilers. When reviewing, are you spoiler-free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? I do not do many spoiler-free reviews, and this is the exact reason Why? Because it does hamper the discussion when you can't talk about any of the spoiler things. And it's especially difficult because not everyone considers the same things to be spoilers or not. So even if you say it's spoiler-free, somebody's gonna get mad at you for considering something a spoiler that you didn't. Yeah, I just fully embrace that most of my reviews are completely spoiler-filled. But that is actually why I started my spoiler dial system. The dial has only 3 settings, because I figured adding more settings wouldn't actually be useful. And I'll have links to these dials in the description if you want to download them, because let's make these more in circulation, or at least these ideas of 3 levels of spoilers. Because everyone can agree that there can be at least 2 levels of spoilers, spoiler-free and all the spoilers, right? But I think there's also a moderate spoiler level, because think about it this way. For me, a spoiler is only bad if it changes your emotional experience with the book. I don't really care what information is in my head or not. I care about, is this making me enjoy the book more or enjoy the book less? Because you're afraid that it's going to change your experience with the book, it's going to make it worse, you're going to be missing out on the unspoiled experience you could have had. So even if your experience being spoiled is technically better than the unspoiled experience, there's no way for you to know that, and you're still missing out on this opportunity. So for me, the moderate spoiler dial means, yes, I am definitely spoiling parts of the plot. Most people could agree that these are spoilers. But none of them are spoilers that I would consider to change my emotional experience reading the book. Like knowing that the main couple ends up together at the end of a romance is technically a spoiler. You're spoiling the ending of the plot. But also, does that change your emotional experience with reading the book? Probably not. Conversely, if at the end of the book a main character dies, that would not be a moderate spoiler. That would be all the spoilers. Because knowing that this character dies going in would change your emotional experience reading the book. It would make it a completely different experience getting to know that character, knowing that they're destined for tragedy. So at the beginning of my videos, you'll find a spoiler dial telling you, are you in for no spoilers at all? Moderate spoilers, that is giving you plot points, but not anything that will really change your emotional journey with the book. Or all the spoilers, which is all the spoilers. And hey, if you're into that, go ahead and spoil yourself. I spoil myself on purpose all the time for books I don't care about yet. Usually that just makes me care about them, and then I kind of wish I hadn't. But, you know, you never learn, that's okay. Sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? This has never happened to me. But I think that there is a larger question here of, is it okay to spoil classics? Because many introductions of classics thinks that this is okay. But just because a book is old, does that mean that spoilers don't matter anymore? That is completely false. And we should protect spoilers no matter how old the book is. Let me tell you a story that is so wonderful about someone who is completely unspoiled for something that I think everyone on Earth must have been spoiled for, but not this girl. So I guess like spoilers for Star Wars Episode 5 incoming? Once upon a time, I worked at a library, and this wonderful 20-something girl came in asking for me to help her to find Star Wars 4 DVD. And she started telling me her story, that she had grown up not being a geek or nerd in any way, had never seen Star Wars. The most she knew about it was there was like the Jedi people and Darth Vader was like the villain. So she got the first few movie DVDs from the library, Episode 1, 2, and 3. And she said she liked them. And then she started telling me her experience with Episode 3. So she had been following this wonderful Jedi character named Anakin Skywalker for a while, and he was a pretty good hero. She liked him a lot. And then at the end of Episode 3, she discovered that Anakin Skywalker turned into Darth Vader, the villain, and was the father of Luke Skywalker, the other Jedi hero guy? And she was floored. She was telling me the story so emotionally wrought and broken inside from this betrayal of her expectations, and it was so precious and beautiful. And that was only possible because she had never been spoiled for Star Wars. She got an experience that very few people on Earth will be able to experience, which is watching Star Wars from Episode 1 onward and not knowing Anakin's fate. And for her, that completely changed her emotional experience with the movies. So, don't be spoiling things. Everyone gets their own experience. Unless they want to be spoiled, in which case, don't refuse to spoil things for them. The most annoying thing is when you're trying to ask for a spoilery answer and you tell people it's okay to spoil me, and then they refuse to tell you the answer. Guys, if they don't care about spoilers, you don't have to impose on them you're caring about spoilers. It doesn't matter. They'll probably like it more spoiled anyway. So says science, kind of. Name a time somebody spoiled a novel for you. I've been spoiled for many novels. Hunger Games, Harry Potter, etc. just because they're cultural monoliths and you just kind of get spoilers via osmosis. And that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes, whatever. I couldn't think of any time I've been spoiled for a novel like really big that I really hated the spoiler, but I can think of a time that it happened for a movie. So I'm about to spoil Avengers Endgame and skip to the next timestamp if you don't want to hear that. Once upon a time, Avengers Endgame had been out for a few weeks, and I had successfully avoided all spoilers. And I had tickets to see it the next week, and I was very excited. And then I was chatting with this guy, one of my friends, and I expressed that I was very excited to see Avengers Endgame, and I hadn't been spoiled yet, and I was very proud of myself for avoiding all the spoilers. And he turned to me and said, "You know Iron Man, he dies." I was just crushed because I had worked so hard to avoid that spoiler, and then there it was, dumped in my lap. Was it a surprising spoiler? No. If he had asked me instead, who do you think would die? I would have predicted Iron Man. Like, it wasn't a big plot twist, and yet it still completely changed my emotional experience watching the movie, knowing that that was the ending the whole time. And that would be an all the spoilers moment. Have you ever spoiled a novel for somebody else? Many times. You may have noticed that I kind of love talking about books. Like, I have an entire YouTube channel just to talk about books. Duh. So if you have the misfortune of being in my close circle of friends, you will often hear me talking about books. And if someone expresses like, hey, don't spoil that for me, I will try to respect that and not talk about it with them and not spoil it for them. But I have spoiled more books than I can count for my friends. And I apologize to anyone who had their experience significantly worse reading a book because of that. But also, I do try to avoid the biggest spoilers when I'm talking about books. I do have some class. But sometimes I just start ranting about a book and I kind of forget what's a spoiler and what's not, and then oops, now you know who dies. Ugh. And if you're interested in buying shirts like this and other ones based on various books, please go check out my store. There's a link down in the footnotes. So those are all my thoughts on spoilers. What are your thoughts on spoilers? Please let me know. Thanks for watching!